Hey, so I wanted to try something new for once. So usually I would try to talk about one arc or one story portion for a whole video, but this will be a bit different. Today I'll be debuting a new series where I will review multiple arcs in just 1,000 words or less. So in 1,000 words I have to say what I like, dislike, and notable stuff about an arc in question. So why not start this series with a manga series I've been dying to read for a while, Hajime no Ippo, or Fighting Spirits as it's called in the West. And since I actually do boxing, it would be interesting to actually read one of the most beloved series of the boxing genre. This time I will be covering the first saga, the Rookie King saga, which means from the early days arc to the Rocky of Naniwa arc. Also, every video like this I will cover an entire saga or a story portion, just so you know the idea. So without any more hesitation and explanation, let us begin. This arc covers Ippo's introduction into boxing and the first two sparring matches against Miyata. Honestly, this was such a solid start to the arc. We were introduced to the basics of boxing, like the jab, guard, and uppercut, and even some of the more advanced stuff like turtle shielding and countering. Also, one aspect I found really cool is that Ippo is basically learning how to fight during his first sparring match, which was insane, even if he lost. Also, Takamura being interested in Ippo after seeing his true strength was also a great way to get Ippo to join. We also learned why Miyata wanted to become a boxer. This was due to his father being one, and him seeing how his father got a serious injury while fighting, which is sad but unfortunately a reality of boxing. Also, the comedy of the series is great and really humanizes the characters. Reminds me a lot of my own boxing club in a way. Also, I know a lot of people will see the coach being harsh towards Ippo and think he's way too harsh towards Ippo, but I gotta disagree. The ring is far worse, and the harsh treatment towards Ippo in these chapters are a great way to introduce him to the real world of boxing. Trust me, training is one thing, but actually fighting in the ring is a whole other thing. And seeing Ippo go from this guy who could barely throw a punch and losing his first sparring match to someone who manages to beat Miyata in 3 months and gets Miyata to change clubs was great development for Ippo, but also upsets him since he lost someone in the club that he would have called a rival to himself. But it does show that every fight has its actions and consequences. Overall, the early days arc is a great setup and introduces us to not only Hajime no Ippo, but also boxing. Solid start, I would say. Debut arc covers Ippo getting his professional license, us seeing Takamura fight for the first time, and Ippo's debut match against Yusuke Oda. What a great way to introduce how tough a debut match can be. But before I talk about that, Ippo getting his professional license was also great to see, and us seeing some characters who will be important in later arcs, even some I'll cover soon, was also great to see. Ippo also being confronted by his bullies and affirming to them that they aren't the reason he started boxing was such a satisfying moment, and it shows how boxing has positively affected Ippo. Also, I have a feeling Takamura has something for Ippo since he keeps talking about his penis, and even embarrassing Ippo during and after his debut match. And all I gotta say is Ippo is suffering from success. We also get introduced to Yusuke Oda, who was Ippo's opponent, and him being uninterested in fighting but decides to train after his girl breaks up with him after learning Ippo was his opponent was sad, but made the match even more exciting since they both had a thing to fight for. And him getting a massive W at the end, even though he lost, was great too. So one thing about the series you will notice a lot is the fighting styles. Sure, they aren't real fighting styles, but rather they are based on actual real world fighting styles. It makes boxing in the Ippo universe more interesting since they are using fighting styles from real world fighters. We saw this during the match and it adds a bit more uniqueness to the fights in the series. Overall, the fight was great and so was the arc. Ippo's debut was great to read and the action was on point. I can't wait to see more fights now that Ippo has done his debut match. This arc is better than early days by a lot and I'm glad for it. Great arc. The Rookie King first rounder arc covers Ippo's second ever match, a lot of the Rookie King tournament matches leading up to the semifinal round, and ending with Takamura's championship match. One thing I really liked is how Ippo's bullies turned into some of his biggest fans. They went from bullying him chapter 1, and when they heard he became a pro boxer, they decided to watch his second ever match to see him lose, but they ended up cheering for him at the end and became massive fans of his. This was such great character development from characters you wouldn't expect to get development, and I love it. Not long after this, we see the Rookie King tournament start, and I want to talk a bit about each match. First, Ippo had to fight Jason Osuma, a Japanese-born black man, which gets Ippo and the gym worried since they haven't fought a black opponent before. Trust me, Japan in the 90s was wild. And after getting help by his gym in a questionable way, we see the match happen. Honestly, I like Jason's introduction, since even if Ippo feared him, he was still a kind person helping his mom repair a punching bag and having a noble reason to win the tournament. The fight itself was also great. They were both strong fighters, and it was all down to who could survive and dodge each other's punches more. And this fight always kept me on my toes, and I'm glad we got not only to see Ippo doing his best, but also the best Jason could do. And I'm glad Ippo advanced forward, even though I was cheering on Jason since he was such a kind dude. Before we get into Ippo's next match, we see Miyata demolish his opponent, which gives fear to Ippo. Ippo finds a cute girl who he falls for, and we learn that his next opponent is Kenta Kobashi, who doesn't impress the others, but the next guy, Ryuichi Hayama, gets Aoki's attention since his fan club is filled with cute girls and motivates him to help Ippo because of this. Aoki, Takamura, and Kimura's shenanigans is something I'll never get tired of from this manga. Speaking of their shenanigans, we also get a few chapters of them training on the beach, and these chapters were probably the best downtime chapters during this arc, since we saw them not only push themselves hard training, but also them having some goofs at times made these chapters so memorable to me. We also see Kenta observing Ippo and being spotted. We also see him train and talk to his trainer while eating soba. Look, I don't care for Kenta as much as I did for Jason. Maybe Jason was just a special case, since his motives of winning was actually good. The fight between Ippo and Kenta itself was fine. I like the idea of Kenta using a strategy that was specifically made to fight Ippo, and the ending when Ippo finally got that knockout punch was satisfying too. But I feel like the fight itself didn't have much hype as something like Ippo versus Jason or Ippo versus Yusuke. However, a match I really enjoyed was Takamura's match right after. That fight was so good, and the main motivation for Takamura to continue being Ippo was very cute as well. Overall, I would say a good arc. I would say this is better than the debut in early days arc. Aside from Ippo versus Kenta, which got a bit boring as it went on, the rest of the fights were hype. Can't wait to see more fights in the next arc. This arc covers the semi-final and final fight of the Rookie King tournament. Before we get into the match themselves, we see Ippo talking to his teachers about his goals of becoming a boxer, which was great since Ippo has a life goal which he wants to accomplish. We also see Ippo meeting Kenta, and we also learn who his next opponent is. Ippo's opponent was Hayama. He had to learn and train a lot in order to get ready against him, since Hayama's fighting style is a good counter to Ippo's fighting style. Ippo is, of course, scared for the fight coming up, and we see everyone around him giving him encouragement before the fight. And Ippo even goes to watch Hayama's match and understands that he has a very low chance of winning. We also see Aoki having a match right after. No one really cares for aside from Ippo, Takamura, and Kimura, who mocks Aoki and calling him a clown. I feel bad for Aoki. I want to be there and cheer for him. We also see Hayama training and learn a bit about him. So far, I would say I've liked Ippo's opponents, but this one I hope Ippo wins over, because he is annoying as hell. We also see Ippo learning how to counter after Miyata said he could probably beat Hayama. We then get to the match. This match was so good. Not only did Ippo finish Hayama off, he did it in the most satisfying way punchable. The fight itself was great. They kept trading blows, and even though most of the crowd was rooting for Hayama, Ippo got the dub, and I'm so glad since it taught Hayama a lesson he fucking deserved. We also learned that Ippo has a month to get ready for his next match, which will either be Miata or Mashiba. We then see the fight against two. The build-up was tense since Ippo wants Miata to win. Meanwhile, Mashiba is built up to be the strong foe, and when he enters the ring, it was entertaining as hell to read. Miata started with the upper hand, but Mashiba was able to get a few clean hits on Miata, even causing him to damage his leg, which ultimately costed Miata the match. Miata's loss really annoyed Ippo and made him really want to beat Mashiba in the finals. And I feel that energy too. We even see Ippo hitting a bag so much it caused him to bleed. We also see how cocky Mashiba is, and I can't wait for Ippo to beat the living shit out of him. However, Ippo is conflicted after he learns that the girl he has a crush on, who have been appearing throughout the last two arcs, is Mashiba's sister, and he might have accidentally insulted her brother in front of her. That gotta hurt. The fight itself was amazing. The fight was intense to read and got me excited to read even more. Mashiba had a strong start, but after his left arm blood vessel stopped working, it became a bit more easier for Ippo to beat. Overall, the fight was probably my favorite and had the emotional impact that it should have had. It took everything good from each of the previous fights and did them even better here. This will probably be ranked over Jason for me. Overall, my favorite arc so far, and I can't wait to see how the final arc in the saga goes, now that Ippo is the East Japanese Rookie King. The Rocky of Naniwa arc covers the fight between the West and East Japanese Rookie King. Before we are introduced to the West Rookie King, we see Ippo is planning to withdraw from the next tournament due to his injury from the fight against Mashiba. This doesn't sit well with the West Rookie King, and he visits Ippo's gym. The West Rookie King is a guy by the name Sendo Takeshi. We also learned that the nickname Rocky is not from the movie Rocky, but from the heavyweight fighter by the name of Rocky Marciano. Sendo so far is a fine character, a overly confident fighter who can't keep his mouth shut. Seems like a character who will turn out to be a fun character to read. Sendo is angry with Ippo withdrawing, and after doing road work with him, he starts to have second thoughts about his choice. We also see Sendo and Takamura spar, which ends with Takamura so pissed at Sendo, he knocks him out. Keep in mind, Takamura is 6 classes over Sendo. This is basically a death sentence to Sendo. Sendo gets sent back to where he came from, but not before telling Ippo to meet him in Osaka for the tournament. Ippo having second thoughts over his choice is so good because we see a part of boxing where sometimes you have to think either you have to fight or withdraw and think about your health. He ultimately checks up with an orthopedist who the guys fall for, and he decides he will try to fight Sendo at the tournament. The coach is against the idea, but Ippo, as stubborn as he is, insists and he trains. The introduction of the orthopedist Yamaguchi was honestly great. Not only did we get the introduction of a relevant female character aside from Kumi, but it also gave us more goofy scenes with Aoki, Takamura, and Kimura. Anyways, after a month of training and Ippo getting jacked like goddamn, they make it to Osaka and realize Ippo's arm is still damaged. They consider withdrawing, but ultimately Ippo fights Sendo. The fight itself was great. Ippo being injected with a drug that could neutralize his pain before the fight was a smart thing to do, since it made the match so much easier for him. However, Sendo still dominated the fight for the most part, and this was more on the realistic side. The fact that Ippo won by the fact that Sendo went unconscious during the break before the 4th round was shocking, and the panel of him unconscious hits so goddamn hard. Also, the crowd was annoying as hell. Sure, they would root for Sendo because it's their Rookie King, but them constantly yelling for Sendo and even causing Sendo to hit past the bell made me really despise the crowd themselves. Overall, I would rank this below Jason, as much as I hate to say it. Jason and Mashiba's fight were more emotional to me. I'll also rank this arc below the 2 Rookie King arcs before it, and that is my opinion of the Hajime no Ippo Rookie King Saga. Overall, great start to the series, and I can't wait to see more. Next time, I'll be reviewing the A-Class Contender Saga arcs. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!